In the heart of Mesopotamia, where the Euphrates River wound its way across the desert, there once stood a city so dazzling that travelers spoke of it with awe, and poets could only describe it in hushed tones. Babylon, a city of gold and gardens, of towering ziggurats and colossal walls. To the ancient world, it seemed eternal, a jewel carefully set in the crown of history. Its walls were said to be so wide that chariots could race upon them, stretching in rings around the city, like the coils of a serpent. At its center rose temples that reached toward the heavens, the most famous dedicated to Marduk, Babylon's protective god. And beyond them, in the legends at least, stood the hanging gardens, terraces of green and flowing water that seemed to defy the dry desert air. Whether those gardens truly existed or were a dream embroidered by later storytellers, Babylon was thought of as the very image of permanence, a city that could never fall. Life inside Babylon had its own rhythm, steady and unshaken. Merchants filled its marketplaces with lapis lazuli from distant mountains, cedar wood from Lebanon, gold from Persia, and spices from lands beyond. Astronomers gazed at the stars from its ziggurats, recording the motions of the heavens in clay tablets. Priests carried out ancient rituals with chants that had echoed for centuries. Even ordinary households, with their mud-brick walls and narrow courtyards, were touched by this sense of belonging to something eternal. To be a Babylonian was to live at the very heart of civilization. And yet, all of it unraveled in the span of a single night. In 539 BCE, Babylon fell, not in fire and chaos, but in eerie silence. To its people, it must have felt like the softest shift in a dream. The city that had always stood unbroken suddenly belonged to someone else. At the time, Babylon was ruled by Nabonidus, a king who troubled his people in ways that were subtle but deeply unsettling. He had withdrawn from the city for long periods, leaving his son, Belshazzar, to govern. More troubling still, he seemed to favor a lesser-known deity over Babylon's beloved god Marduk, disrupting centuries of ritual and angering the priesthood. For a people whose lives were bound to omens and ceremonies, this neglect of the gods must have felt like a slow unmooring, a quiet betrayal. Beneath the glitter of temples and palaces, Babylon's spiritual foundation was beginning to crack. Beyond its walls, another power was rising. Cyrus the Great, king of Persia, had already swept across vast lands with an army both disciplined and ingenious. But the thought of conquering Babylon seemed almost absurd. Its walls were impregnable, its river an endless source of life. Siege weapons would splinter before such defenses. To starve the city would take years. The Babylonians believed themselves secure, watching from their towers as the Persians camped beyond reach. Yet Cyrus was patient, and he was clever. Ancient accounts tell us that he did not attempt to batter down Babylon's gates, but instead turned his eyes to the river that sustained it. The Euphrates, which flowed directly through the city, was both its strength and its vulnerability. Cyrus's men worked quietly in the night, digging channels to divert the waters. Slowly the riverbed lowered, and then, as Babylon slept, Persian soldiers slipped into the city along the drying banks, creeping beneath its gates where the river once flowed strong. It is said that, on the night of the invasion, the Babylonians were feasting. Herodotus, the Greek historian, tells of music and celebration, while others recall the famous tale preserved in the book of Daniel. A feast held by Belshazzar, where the sacred vessels of the Jerusalem temple were used in revelry. In the midst of wine and laughter, a hand appeared, writing upon the wall, Mene, Mene, Tekel, Parsin. Words foretelling the kingdom's end, declaring it weighed and found wanting. Whether this vision was real or imagined later, it reflects the mood that must have clung to that night, a sense that fate had already turned and that Babylon's power was slipping away. When the Persians entered, the city did not erupt in battle. Instead, its people seem to have yielded almost without a struggle. Some whisper that the priests themselves opened the gates, eager to rid themselves of a king who had forsaken their rituals. To them, Cyrus was not an invader, but the chosen of Marduk, come to restore order to the sacred rhythms of the city. Cyrus, in turn, played the part of liberator rather than conqueror. He restored temples, honored Babylon's gods, and issued proclamations of freedom. Among these was his decree allowing the Jewish exiles in Babylon to return to their homeland, a moment remembered as one of kindness amid conquest. And so Babylon did not fall in ruin. Its walls still stood, its ziggurats still reached for the sky, its gardens still bloomed. But its spirit was transformed. An empire that had seemed eternal was suddenly absorbed into something larger. To awaken that morning in Babylon was to find the world changed, as if one dream had ended and another had begun. What makes Babylon's fall so haunting is its quietness. History often remembers collapses in flames and rubble, yet here the shift was like a whisper. One moment, the Babylonians believed themselves untouchable. The next, they were subjects of Persia. No epic last stand, no thunderous clash, only silence, shadows, and the soft tread of foreign soldiers entering in the dark. In time, Babylon would linger on, still magnificent, but its soul already fading. Later kings would neglect it, and centuries would wear down its walls until the desert claimed it. Yet in memory, it remains a city of legend, a place where the line between myth and history blurs. Was the river truly diverted in a single night? Did the priests truly betray their king? Did Belshazzar truly see the writing on the wall? These questions float like dust motes in the half-light of history, never settling. Perhaps what truly caused Babylon to fall overnight was not merely Cyrus's ingenuity, but the deeper unraveling of belief. A city that no longer trusted its king, no longer certain of its gods, is already a city undone. The Persians merely arrived to claim what had already slipped away. And so, Babylon stands in our memory as both a marvel and a warning. No matter how tall the walls, how vast the temples, how endless the river that runs through, no city, no empire is eternal. They can vanish not with a roar, but with the soft sigh of night. As you drift into your own night's dreams, picture Babylon beneath the stars, its people feasting in confidence, unaware that beneath their feet the river was sinking away, that in the stillness outside their walls their fate had already been sealed. By morning, the world they knew was gone. And with that, we let the story fade, as softly as Babylon itself did. If you enjoyed wandering through this strange, dreamlike chapter of history, I invite you to subscribe, so together we can keep traveling through the forgotten mysteries of the past. Sleep well, and good night.